Hey everyone, another episode of Writing Daily. This is the show hosted by me, Devin Galaudet, and we talk about everything that you do as a writer. Part of what's happening ultimately is I'm going to be talking a lot about my experience in getting my first, my memoir published, which is exciting. And for those who don't know, my name is Devin Galaudet. I am the editor-in-chief of An Inno Traveler and the author of the forthcoming memoir, 10,000 Miles of My Dead Father's Ashes. Today, I'm a little annoyed. Actually, I'm not really annoyed at all, but I use that as sort of like a tagline. And today we're going to be discussing about sort of getting angry with your writing. Like, obviously we spend an unbelievable amount of time focusing on our happiness and trying to avoid anger for a whole variety of health reasons and psychological reasons. And that's all great. That's all perfect. Like we should focus on that. But is being angry a bad thing in your writing? No, I think it's what makes your writing sing. And I'm going to give you a couple examples. When I got back into writing, I remember taking this class, and I've told this story before, and I'm probably going to tell this story 20 more times during the course of this podcast. But I used to like this girl who owned a bookstore in Santa Monica. I'd go into the bookstore, and I love bookstores anyway, and we'd have these great conversations. And long story short, I started taking a writing class. I mean, this was a long time ago. And she was like, no, you have to go take this other teacher. He'll change your life. And I go take this other teacher, and he's an interesting guy with bushy eyebrows. His name is Jim Crusoe at Santa Monica City College. Super rock star genius. But the long story short was, it was my goal to impress him with my flair and my whatever it is that I'm trying to impress him with. And so I'm in this class with him, and every week there's a different writing assignment. I turn in the writing assignment, and there is like red lines through almost every single word that I wrote down. Like it was literally like he said, line, cut out. It's a nice day, and kept that. And at the bottom, he would always write something to the effect of, hey, great job. You're really moving the story along. From like 4 pages, it would be condensed down to a half a paragraph. And I was horrified. And this goes on for weeks. And I'm sitting at home at night, and I'm annoyed because I'm trying to impress this guy, and he's clearly a super genius. And I guess me impressing him would imply that I was a good writer. And clearly his red lines through all of my work was implying that I was, in fact, not a good writer. So I'm sitting at home working on an assignment that he had given, and I thought to myself, why don't I just make him the villain, and I'm going to stick a pencil in his face. I'm going to stick a pencil in his face, like right in his eye, like 25 times, like right from, what was that movie with the shower scene? The shower scene where she gets stabbed 50 times. It was like that in my head, and it eventually came out on the page. And so I turned it in during the next class. I didn't think anything about it. And he had pulled me off to the side and said, hey, great work. I knew you were going to get it. You really turned a corner. And I didn't think about it that way. I just thought, well, I'm going to just jack this guy up in my story. That's what I ended up doing. And I didn't think about all this other stuff, in part because I stopped worrying about sort of crafting a story, so to speak. Like I stopped attempting to be a writer, and I just let whatever happen. Like if the characters went in a direction, I went with that direction. And I think being angry, or sort of like being in touch with your emotions, is crucial to good writings, rather than I'm trying to write a story that people want to read and worrying about those kinds of things, like planning out your writing in ahead. You just allow your characters to be the characters who they need to be. Allow your instincts to jump in when they jump in. I mean, you can use your logical brain at some later point in time. That's allowed. You can go back and edit it and start questioning about particular choices, but really you allow your characters to be who they are on the page. And I think it was really important on a personal note for my memoir, and I think this is true for every memoir. The truth of the matter is nobody really wants to read about the nice people in Nice Land. I know that I don't. So I want to know what's at stake, and I want to know that the protagonist or the narrator is having the experience that they need to have in the moment while they are having that experience, if that makes any sense. So that means, like, I have to get out of my own way. Like, do I, and we've had different episodes in this podcast about that. Like, do I use swear words? Do I, how do I use profanity? How do I use sex? How do I use these things that people can easily point to and judge and say, oh, this is a terrible book because of profanity. This is a terrible book because there's a sex scene in it. And people are allowed to do that. They're allowed to find their own personal aesthetic as readers. But in terms of writing, I think we should have the reader in mind. But at the same time, we want to make sure that whatever it is that we're ultimately putting out there is really the story we want to be telling, rather than some variation of the story we want to tell because we're afraid that somebody else's opinion is going to take your story and throw hate on it. They're probably going to throw hate on it anyway. So you might as well really kind of like get down, dig down deep and allow yourself to be angry. And obviously this was ironic because my wife was in here 10 minutes ago doing a podcast on love, where everything's springtimes and blue blossoms and everything is shining and smiling and happy. And all of that's terrific, right? We want that in our lives. We want those kinds of things as goals. But at the same time, that if we're going to be angry, as like in a moment, like if we're writing something that's really close to the vest, how do we want that to come out? Like if we're in pain when we're writing, then we should express that pain in whatever means we need to express it to get it out. We can always recoil it later. We can always edit it later to soften it if need be. Like, and I think I talked about that when I made this final pass, like the final pass, like I had sold the book, the book is already in, the editor's already edited it, and I'm now reading it. And there was a handful of lines where it was like, oh, now I'm just being kind of a tool. I don't know if that's what my goal is there. I don't necessarily want the reader to think, wow, he's a complete ass. I would rather think he's being authentic. So what's the line? Well, we dance on that line. We try to find where that line is, where it's appropriate for our story and for our book. And so, I didn't want to take away from my anger. I didn't want to try to not be angry while I was writing. I went with my anger. I went with my sadness. I went with my fear. I went with as authentic a person I was capable of being within the confines of the stories that I was attempting to tell. As you guys always know, leave comments right here. There's a box. There's buttons that say like and love and wow. Click those often. Click them to your heart's desire. That's what we're looking for. And if not, feel free to ask me a question. Let me know where you're at with your own writing. And let's talk about what you're doing so we can be of service to each other and do our best work together. And because I truly believe that, it sort of takes a village. And definitely like and subscribe and share and do all that kind of fun stuff. And yes, join me on my Facebook page if you want to know more about 10,000 Miles with My Dead Father's Ashes. That is at devingallaudet.com/dad, D-A-D. So anyway, that's what we've got for today. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you are having a really wonderful day, and let's keep writing daily. Thanks so much for joining me today.